Okay, today I'm comparing the Silky Gomboy 210mm large tooth version to the Silky Super Accel 210, also large tooth version. These saws are very similar, but there are some important differences. So let's get right into the specifications and details and talk about those differences and similarities. And then at the end of this, I'll offer you just a little bit of my opinion. The Silky Gomboy 210 large tooth, this has 6 points per inch on an 8 1/4 inch blade. There's a 44.5 teeth on this 8 1/4 inch blade. And the reason I say that there's a half a tooth is the safety tip is sharpened on the user's side. So we can always count that on a Silky saw to be a half a tooth. That's just being nitpicky, but I've had people be nitpicky about it, so we're going to specify that's a half a tooth. There are 44.5 teeth on an 8 1/4 inch blade, and this is a 6 points per inch 3D cut tooth configuration, pull cut. The teeth face back toward the user and are sharpened in that direction. The widest point is 3/4 of an inch thick, and that's there by the lanyard hole. Well, that's the thickest point. The widest point, if we determine that this is width, the distance from the spine of the blade to the highest point on the back of the handle, that is 2 1/4 inches wide. This weighs 9.5 ounces. Opened up, it is 9 3/10. No, excuse me, that's the folded length is 9 3/10 of an inch. Opened up, it's 17 1/4. There's 17 1/4 inches all opened up. Okay, the Silky Super Accel 210 has 48.5 teeth, and this is a 6.5 points per inch tooth configuration. These are also 3D cut teeth, shaped back toward the user as a pull cut, and again on the safety tip, the edge toward the user is sharpened for that extra half a tooth. 8 1/4 inch blade, 6.5 ppi, 48.5 teeth. The thickest point on this is 4/5 of an inch, also right here by the lanyard hole. This one is just a little bit wider. It's got a little different shape when it's all folded up. You can see there's the teeth are slightly exposed, not the edges of them, but you can see teeth along the handle here. So this one is a little bit wider, and again about the widest spot is from here at the activator, the lock activator, to the edge of the spine. And that is 4/5 of an inch. No, excuse me, that's the thick spot here, 4/5 of an inch by the lanyard hole. And then the width is 2 3/8 of an inch. So that's a little bit wider than this one, a little bit thicker than the Gomboy. It is 9 3/10 of an inch folded up. They are the same. They are the same folded length, 9 3/10 of an inch. But this one is only 17 1/5 of an inch open. There is a little bit of a difference. Even though their folded length is the same, the pivot point is slightly different in these blades, and these blades are not interchangeable, by the way. Even though they are very similar, they are not interchangeable. Both of these saws have a 2-position lock, which would make you think that they'd be interchangeable, but they are not. The locks are different, and I'm going to try to show you that here in just a second. The locks are different. The build material is different, not the blades. These are both SK4 Japanese steel, very, very nice saw steel. Excellent high carbon, good saw steel. The locks are different, and maybe I can get focused on this. I hope I can anyway. See if we can, there we go. The notches that the lock drops into on this one are very narrow. They're positioned very similar to the other saw, but that's a very narrow cut, and the reason for that I hope I can, there we go. You can kind of see that lock in there. That is a nice wide bar of a lock. It's about 3 times the amount of material that's in the crossbar lock on the Super Accel. The Super Accel has a round pin. I sure don't know if that's focusing well enough or not, but it's a round pin about maybe 1.7 millimeter or so. And then this has a bar for a pin. You can see it on the outside here, right there at the tip of my thumb. That's the pin that's pushed through the back of the saw to act as a, or through the, not the back of the saw, but the through the lock lever. Where on this one, it's a little bitty pin right there at the tip of my thumb. So there's about 3 times the material in the lock bar on the Gomboy than there is on the Super Accel. Super Accel requires bigger cuts because that is round. The pin is round. So they require a bigger cut there. And I don't know if that weakens the blade or not. You know, you're not really, it's all behind the pivot anyway. It's all behind the pivot screw anyhow, so I don't think that that's causing any sort of a weak spot, but it is a bigger cut out of the blade. Okay, build materials. The Super Accel, this is an aluminum frame, and that's why it only weighs 7.62 ounces. I forgot to mention that in the specifications and details. This is 7.62 ounces, and the Gomboy is 9.5 ounces. So there's an 1.75 ounce difference between them, and it's in this material. That's where it is. This is an aluminum frame covered with gum rubber. This is a steel frame covered with gum rubber. While I don't think you'd have an easy time damaging the frame on this saw, this one is sturdier. This is all steel. They're about the same thickness of material, although it's hard to see because they've rolled this aluminum, and this is cut steel, sanded, and then chromed. So it's kind of hard to, maybe I can find a spot where that will focus for you. You can see the Gomboy there pretty well, but maybe not. There we go. That's about as good as I'll get. Material's about the same thickness, but really this one being rolled and this one being cut, it's really kind of hard to see. Now, while we're here talking about this, this is aluminum. This is sharp in here. If your hand were to slip forward on this saw and you were to pinch skin in between here, you'd get cut. There is absolutely no doubt in my mind that if you pinch skin in here and slid forward as it tapers, you would get cut. This is very sharp. I'm going to take some 300 grit to mine. I have another one just like this, and it is the same way. It's very sharp in that little gap on both sides. So I'm going to assume that all of the Super Accels are like that. If you have one or are going to get one, I'd like to hear from you about that. Let me know for sure if yours is sharp too. But I'm going to take a little 300 grit in here and smooth that off to make it a little safer. We've talked about it before. A person should be wearing gloves when they're operating a device like this, but a lot of times I don't. That's just the truth. Okay, we've talked about the difference in the lock and the difference in the build material a little bit. Let's finish on the build material. This gum rubber is really nice stuff. It's super, super grippy stuff. On the Super Accel, you've got a nice pistol grip here. Gives you a little extra reach if you've got to get to something that's pretty far away from you. The Gomboy, this is more squared off, and it's a little uncomfortable to try to hold on to it at the very end like that. So I kind of prefer this pistol grip. I can see a lot of situations where I'd like a little extra reach, and that'll provide it. The grip texture on the Gomboy, however, I think is superior. Let me see if I can focus on these dots just a little bit. There we go. You can see that those are raised. giving you even more grip. And this stuff's grippy stuff to begin with, but raised little dots that really just, there's no pulling this out of your hand. Really grippy stuff. Also, excuse me, grippy stuff, but if I can focus on the dots, you will see that those are indented rather than raised. So the gum rubber has an advantage in how it's made, although it's very similar stuff and very grippy stuff. I like the one on the Gomboy a little bit better. The steel construction has some advantage, both in the fact that it's better finished, so it doesn't have a sharp edge here, and it's steel. Steel is stronger than aluminum. There aren't a lot of circumstances I can think of where you'd be able to damage this Super Accel. Maybe if you fell down on it. It's pretty sturdy. It's really well made. I'm not complaining about how well made it is at all. But if you tried hard enough, you could bend this, and maybe if you fell on it, it might bend. This is steel. You're going to have a lot tougher time accomplishing any damage of it, that's for sure. Okay, the last difference that I made note of, even though these blades are very similar and they're the same Japanese SK4 high carbon steel, there's just one more little attention to detail here that I really like on the Gomboy, and that's this little hole. It's not like a Spidey hole on a Spyderco. It's not a one-handed opening sort of thing, but it does afford you a nice purchase on this, stiff saw. This can be loosened up. You can loosen these up and maybe oil them if you want to, but quite honestly, to keep it closed, it doesn't rely on a lock like other saws. It doesn't lock shut, so it relies on itself having some friction here and being stiff. Well, this gives you a nice little spot to get a good purchase on it to pull that out. I like that. This lacks that little attention to detail. So, I mean, if your hands were wet, if you're wearing gloves, I can think of a lot of situations where I think that, I really appreciate having that on all my Silky Gomboys. Okay, I think we covered it. Amazon price recently, about 21 bucks on this. Amazon price recently, 28 or 30 bucks on this. I do think that the Gomboy is the better value. Or worth buying, I should say. This might be the better value, but I think this is worth the extra few bucks. The attention to detail, the more durable material in the handle, this nifty little feature here, the extra material in the locking mechanism. Yeah, I really kind of prefer the Gomboy line to the Super Accel. These both do a beautiful job in wood. They're both very fast, even though there's a half a tooth difference in their points per inch configuration, and even though this one's got a few more teeth, honestly, I don't think you're going to tell a difference. Their blade lengths are identical. Their blade shape is identical. Their blade material is also identical. Yeah, you'd have a tough time telling the difference until you got into material that's probably too big for these saws to be cutting anyway. 210 millimeter, 8.25 inch blade. I don't think you should be cutting anything a whole lot bigger than 4 inches or so with these. A 4-inch log is about as far as you want to go with a saw this size. I mean, there are circumstances where you could do twice that much and work your way around a log, or we could get into that, but I'm not gonna today. I think, just normal use, these saws are designed for, about a 4-inch log, or maybe a little bit more. They do a fine job. They're very fast saws. Okay, I think that's it. I think that's all I've got to say about these saws for today. Okay, well, I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to me for a while. I hope that this information is valuable to you if you're looking at buying either one of these saws. You know the specifications and details. You kind of know how they stack up against each other as far as build material and the slight differences between them. And, I hope that helps you make an informed decision. Yeah, so that's about it for today. I hope the rest of your day goes really, really well. And thanks again for listening. Bye-bye.